On a warm, golden afternoon in a quiet neighborhood, the streets buzzed with the soft hum of life, birds chirped lazily from the trees, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. It was one of those rare days where everything seemed perfect, yet there was a quiet sense of hope that hovered over the neighborhood, as if something beautiful was about to happen. At the corner of the street, a little girl named Emily stood behind a humble lemonade stand. The stand, made from a few old cardboard boxes and decorated with colorful markers, looked like something any child might put together. A handwritten sign, "Lemonade, $1," swayed gently in the breeze. The small plastic cups filled with lemonade sparkled in the sunlight, catching the eye of anyone who passed by. Emily looked a little nervous as she adjusted her stand, occasionally glancing down the street, hoping for a customer. She seemed like just another sweet child selling lemonade on a sunny day, but there was something more to her story, something deeper that no one could see at first glance, something that would soon attract the attention of a very unexpected visitor. As the sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the street, a figure wandered into the scene. Johnny Depp, the actor known for his iconic roles and undeniable charm, strolled down the sidewalk, hands casually tucked into his pockets. There was no entourage, no photographers snapping photos, just a man who seemed to blend into the rhythm of the neighborhood, like any other passerby. His laid-back demeanor and unassuming presence made him almost unnoticeable at first. Emily, still anxiously standing behind her stand, didn't recognize him. But there was something about the way he moved, something warm and familiar. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but it felt like something was drawing him toward her stand. Nervously, she waved him over, hoping for a customer, unsure of what to expect. Johnny caught her wave and smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. He approached the stand with an easy confidence, bending down slightly to meet her gaze. "Hi there," he said warmly. "I'll take a cup of lemonade, please." Emily blinked, still unsure of who he was, but happy for the business. She poured the lemonade into a cup, her hands shaking slightly. As she handed it to him, Johnny's eyes sparkled with a kindness that made her feel instantly at ease. He took a sip of the lemonade and smiled again. "This is really good. How long have you been selling lemonade, Emily?" he asked, his voice soft and full of curiosity. She looked up at him, a little surprised that he knew her name, but his genuine interest made her feel like she could open up. "A few days," she said. "I wanted to help my mom, so I thought this would be a good idea." Johnny's smile faded slightly as he listened, sensing there was more to the story. His curiosity deepened, and he asked, "What made you decide to set up a stand?" As Johnny sipped the lemonade, his warm smile never wavered, but there was something in his eyes that hinted at a deeper interest. Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to explain what had brought her to this corner of the street. The words were difficult, especially when talking to a stranger, even someone as kind as Johnny Depp. But something about his presence made her feel safe, like she could trust him. Taking a deep breath, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "My mom, she's really sick," she said, looking down at the ground as if trying to find the right words. "She's in the hospital and I need to help her. She's always been the one to take care of us, and now I have to take care of her." Johnny paused, his expression shifting as he set his cup down on the table. Emily's words hung in the air, heavy with the kind of pain that no child should ever have to carry. "My mom's always been the heart of our family," Emily continued, her voice trembling as she wiped a tear from her cheek. "She worked so hard, taking care of me and my little brother, making sure we never went without, but now, the bills are stacking up, and I don't know how much longer she can stay in the hospital. I thought if I could sell lemonade, maybe I could raise some money to help with the bills. I need to do something." Her voice broke slightly as she finished, her eyes welling up with tears that she quickly wiped away, not wanting to show any more weakness. Johnny stood still for a moment, his heart aching as he processed the weight of Emily's words. The air between them seemed to change, a quiet understanding passing between them. He had seen a lot in his life, but the sincerity and determination in this young girl's eyes made him pause. She wasn't just selling lemonade. She was fighting for her family, trying to hold things together despite the impossible circumstances. He looked at her, his eyes softening with both shock and admiration. He had never been one to shy away from the challenges of life, but there was something especially raw about the way Emily was facing hers. Her bravery, despite her youth, struck him deeply. Here she was, a little girl standing in front of him with the weight of the world on her shoulders, trying to make a difference for her family in the only way she knew how. Johnny's voice was quieter now, filled with a tenderness that matched the compassion in his eyes. "You're incredibly strong, you know that." He paused, his gaze lingering on her for a moment. "Your mom must be so proud of you." Emily nodded, though the sadness still lingered in her eyes. "I just want her to get better," she whispered. "I want to help her, but it feels like I'm not doing enough." Johnny could feel the weight of her words, and his heart went out to her. This was no ordinary lemonade stand. This was the lifeline Emily had created, not just for her mom, but for herself too. The burden she carried was far too great for someone so young, yet she was doing everything she could to make a difference. Johnny stood there for a moment, his mind racing as he tried to think of a way to help. He knew what it was like to struggle, to feel overwhelmed by burdens that seemed impossible to carry alone. As much as he admired Emily's determination, he could see the toll it was taking on her. This wasn't just about a lemonade stand, it was about her trying to save her mother, trying to hold her family together, and it was clear that she couldn't do it alone. "Emily," Johnny said softly, his voice more serious now. "Have you ever thought about asking for help?" Emily shook her head quickly, almost defensively. "I can't do that, I can't just ask for help." "It's not right," she replied, her eyes downcast. "I'm not a charity case." Johnny's heart ached at her words. He could see how proud she was, how determined not to rely on anyone else. It was a trait he understood all too well, but he also knew that sometimes the world had a way of surprising us with kindness, even when we least expected it. He took a deep breath, knowing this was a moment that could change everything for her. "Listen, Emily, I know you don't want charity, but sometimes when life gets hard, we need to accept a little help, even if it's not the way we imagined it." With a quiet determination, Johnny reached into his wallet and pulled out a card. He held it out to Emily, his gaze soft and steady. "I want to help you, but not in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. I want to do something for you, for your mom, and I want it to be anonymous. I'll cover all of her medical bills, everything. You don't have to worry about it anymore. No one needs to know it came from me. It's just something I can do to help you and your family." Emily blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. What do you mean, you'll pay for her bills?" Her voice was filled with disbelief, her eyes wide with confusion. But why? Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." Johnny smiled gently, his eyes filled with compassion. "Sometimes when life gets tough, we have to look out for each other, even if we're strangers. I've been where you are, and I know how it feels. But there's always a way through. And sometimes it's a little bit of unexpected kindness that makes all the difference." Emily's eyes welled up with tears, her heart racing with emotion. She wanted to say something, to ask how this could be real, but the words caught in her throat. How could someone she didn't even know care so much? How could a stranger step into her life like this, offering something so generous, so selfless? It felt like a dream. "Thank you," she finally whispered, her voice shaky. "Thank you so much. I don't know how to even say it." Johnny nodded, a warm smile spreading across his face. "You don't need to thank me, Emily. Just remember, sometimes the world has a way of surprising us with kindness when we least expect it. It's out there even in the darkest times. You just have to keep believing in it." He gave her a final, comforting smile and gently placed the card in her hand. As he turned to leave, he glanced back once more, seeing the hope in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The weight on her shoulders seemed a little lighter, and for the first time in a long while, Emily felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. As Johnny turned to leave, he paused for a moment, his gaze lingering on Emily. There was something about her, something in the way she carried herself, the quiet strength she exuded despite the heavy burden she was shouldering. Johnny could see the weight in her eyes, but also the flicker of hope that was just beginning to grow. He decided to share a bit of himself, a piece of his own story, in the hope that it would help her understand that she wasn't alone. "You know, Emily," Johnny said, his voice low and thoughtful, "when I was your age, I went through some tough times too. I wasn't always this, well, in the spotlight. There were moments when I wasn't sure how I was going to make it through, but there were always people who came into my life at just the right time, and they made all the difference. Emily looked up at him, her curiosity piqued by the sincerity in his tone. He continued, "It wasn't about fame, or money, or anything like that. It was about the people who showed up when things got hard. The ones who helped without asking for anything in return, who just cared because they wanted to. That's the kind of thing that changes you, even when you're feeling lost." Emily's eyes softened as she listened, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and understanding. She could see that Johnny wasn't just talking about the celebrity life, he was talking about something far more personal, something real. His words weren't about sympathy, they were about connection, about recognizing the struggles that everyone faces, no matter who they are. In that moment, something shifted between them. It was as if a silent understanding had passed between them, a shared bond of empathy and compassion that transcended any difference in age, status, or background. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to relax. The weight of her worries didn't feel as crushing, and the fear that had held her so tightly for so long seemed a little less suffocating. "I know it's not easy, Emily," Johnny said gently, his eyes meeting hers with a reassuring look. "But no matter what, keep going, keep pushing forward, even when it feels like you can't. People are out there who care, who want to help, and you're stronger than you think." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a few bills, placing them in her hand along with a generous tip. "Here's for the lemonade, and then some. Keep doing what you're doing. You're making a difference, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." Emily looked down at the money, then back up at Johnny, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I won't forget this." Johnny smiled, his expression warm and full of kindness. "I'll be back to check on you, okay? Keep at it, Emily. You've got this." With one last reassuring nod, Johnny turned and walked down the street, leaving behind not just a generous tip, but a message that Emily would carry with her forever. She watched him disappear around the corner, her heart a little lighter than it had been before. The world didn't seem quite as hard, and the future didn't feel quite as uncertain. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. She had a long road ahead, but she wasn't walking it alone anymore. And that, she realized, made all the difference. In the days that followed Johnny's visit, everything changed for Emily. The weight that had been pressing down on her heart began to lift, bit by bit. Her mother's condition, which had seemed to grow worse with each passing day, began to improve. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, and for the first time in a long while, Emily allowed herself to believe that things might actually get better. The bills that had once seemed insurmountable were no longer a source of constant fear. Somehow they were taken care of. The relief was overwhelming. Emily's heart swelled with gratitude, though she still didn't fully understand how it had happened. She didn't know who had stepped in to cover the medical bills, but she felt a quiet sense of peace. She had been given a second chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. Her mother was on the mend, and Emily could finally breathe again. It was as if the world had shifted in her favor, and she couldn't help but smile when she thought about the kind stranger who had changed everything for her family. As the days passed, word began to spread throughout the neighborhood. People whispered about the young girl with the lemonade stand, and the mysterious benefactor who had helped her when she needed it most. Some figured it out, others simply speculated, but no one truly knew for sure. Emily, however, never felt the need to reveal the identity of the person who had helped her. She was grateful, beyond words, but she understood that kindness didn't always need recognition. It was the act itself that mattered most. The story of Emily's lemonade stand and the kindness of the stranger soon became a beacon of hope for the entire neighborhood. People who had once been too busy to notice one another began to reach out, offering help and support in small ways. It was as though Johnny's gesture had sparked a ripple effect of goodwill, inspiring others to do the same. The community, once quiet and isolated, had been united by the simple, powerful act of kindness. It reminded everyone that kindness was still alive, even in the most unexpected places. For Emily, the experience was life-changing. She had learned that even in the darkest of times, there were people out there who cared, who would step up without expecting anything in return. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all. Johnny Depp's brief visit to Emily's lemonade stand left a lasting impact, not just on her, but on the entire community. It wasn't the money that made the difference. It was the genuine connection between two people who, though they had never met before, shared an unspoken understanding of what it meant to face struggles and find hope in the smallest acts of kindness. Emily's life was forever changed, but so was the spirit of her neighborhood. As the days went on, Emily continued to sell lemonade, not just for her mother's medical bills, but for something bigger. She had learned that even in the darkest moments, kindness could show up in the most unexpected ways. And with each cup of lemonade she sold, Emily was not just helping her family, she was offering a little bit of hope to others who needed it just as much as she had. The story of Emily and her lemonade stand serves as a powerful reminder of the impact small acts of kindness can have. It shows us that no matter how difficult life gets, there is always the potential for something beautiful to happen. And sometimes that beauty comes from the simplest of gestures that can change lives, one kind act at a time. Thank you so much for watching Emily's story. It's a powerful reminder that kindness can change lives in the most unexpected ways, and even the smallest gestures can have a lasting impact. We hope this story inspired you to keep believing in the goodness of people, no matter how hard things might seem. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts and how this story made you feel. And if you want to see more heartwarming and inspiring stories like this, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update. Remember, kindness is everywhere. Let's spread it together.